There's another aspect of web design that's very important, and I don't believe gets the attention that it deserves, and that is the idea of accessibility. When we speak about accessibility for websites, what we're talking about is making websites accessible to people regardless of their abilities or disabilities. Now, that's a huge issue. And I don't think it gets the attention that it deserves. Let's start by trying to define a list of different conditions that would impact someone's ability to access information on the web. So the most obvious of these would be blindness. Now you might instantly think, well, someone that's blind, how can they access the web at all? Well, there is, people with disabilities have two things that help them access it. One is what's called assistive technology.
Right off the bat, would that be like text to speech or something like that?
That would be text to speech. That would be, yeah, text to speech, a screen reader. And also, in addition to that, there is the principles of universal design.
Yeah, because I think, isn't that like if someone is blind, they would have to, there's like an option to have like a text to speech where the speech would actually read like what you actually have. Like,
yeah. In fact, let's go and take a look at that. Let's pull up a web page.
There's an option there, but we'll try it.
That's what do we want to read about today? Right, we'll look at this one. Good old Bill Belichick. Now, if we go under, see if I can find it. Under control panel, there is Needs of Access Center.
Always scan this section.
That give a number of tools that can be used for people with disabilities. Now, one thing that we mentioned, blindness first off. Well, it doesn't. It's not
Start
only
magnifier.
blind that have issues with accessing the web.
Start narrator.
Let's just call them vision-related issues.
Start on screen keyboard.
Of which blindness is probably the most obvious one.
Set up high contrast.
But there's others as well. So let's say we want to access this web page.
Start magnifier.
One of the things is a screen magnifier.
Start narrator.
And what this does is this allows you to access.
Start on screen keyboard.
The screen really, really big.
Set up high contrast.
Somehow clicked on a advertisement to join the Air Force.
Start magnifier.
Well, this will do.
Start narrator.
It really greatly magnifies the screen and allows you to
start on screen keyboard.
The screen better. I actually
set up high contrast.
DJ on WOBC, Oberlin College's radio station, and person that came before
start magnifier.
Person who had to show before me the one semester was someone who was very severely visually impaired. They could see.
Start narrator.
Blind. Maybe they were legally blind, but they could still see, and they took advantage of the magnifier all the time.
Start on screen keyboard.
What they would do is, again, they would be able to go in and zoom in on the portions of the screen they wanted to read and be able to
set up high contrast.
So that's one example of assistive technology. on-key keyboard.
Start on screen keyboard.
When would this be useful? What kind of disability do you think would be useful for an on-key keyboard, on-screen keyboard rather? Where you could type by highlighting the key. Let's see. Well, certain motor control issues. We'll put that one there. So, person that may have trouble manipulating their fingers to type might be able to make the smaller or the less the less intricate motions of moving a mouse around and clicking on that. And these can stem from things such as arthritis, carpal tunnel, and possibly neurological issues. Start narrator. That is the screen reader that we talked about before. And we'll do this, and I hope you can hear it. Not sure. Okay, I have the volume turned up on there. Let's see if you can hear it or not.
Narrator dialog, close, button, Alt plus C. Narrator touch, narrator dialog. Narrator heading level 1, scan. Welcome to narrator. This is narrator home, where you can get help, access your settings, and learn about new features. Narrator is a screen reader that describes aloud what's on your quick start button. Narrator got what's new, settings, feed, show narrate, link, exit narrator, minimize, button, Alt, M.
Because if you think about it, if you're blind, you can't use the mouse, right? Because the mouse requires you to see a portion of the screen to put your mouse on and click. So how someone with severe vision issues or blindness would probably do would be to use and navigate through the keyboard using keyboard shortcuts, including tabs to move around the page and space bar to press a button. Unfortunately, we can't
Exiting narrator.
because we can't hear it, but try it. It is interesting. Try to navigate a page. And it's difficult. I'll say at least it's difficult for someone that's not used to doing it. But if that was the only way of accessing the internet, you would learn how to use it. Set up high contrast. What that relates to is people that have colorblind issues. So again, not necessarily full blindness, but the inability to distinguish colors. Now, being colorblind doesn't mean that you see in black and white, all right? There are a number of different kinds of color blindness, and we can simulate some of those by going to searching for a color blindness simulator. And here's a picture of some crayons. And assuming you're not colorblind, this is what you would see. This is what someone without color blindness would see. Someone who has red weakness, has less ability to distinguish red, would see this. Someone that had green weakness would see this. Someone that would have blue weakness would see this. And there's other types as well.
I think the most common way I've seen the color blindness test done is the Ishihara test, where you have the circles and you have to identify if there's if you can see a number in there.
Right.
So
Right.
it's really good to research if you're interested in that kind of thing. But the Ishihara test is another way you can do that.
Right. Well, that's not so much a way of showing you what it's like to be colorblind. That's a way to test to see if you are colorblind. Now, okay, so we see all these things. What is the importance of this? Well, the importance of this relates to the colors that you choose. All right. Choose high contrasting colors. There are other colorblind simulators that allow you to put a web page in. Let's see if this one allows that. Oh, there's a Chrome plugin that allows you to do that. And that way you can go and you can view your web pages to see. Now, one thing, again, using high contrast would usually help people with color blindness. The other thing to do is to not rely on only color to indicate a message. So for example, if I have a page, and I'll just do this in Word, but we can get the idea. If I have a paragraph, and this sentence is important, what you could do, what you might think of doing is, well, let's make this red. All right, and that will make it stand out for people who are not colorblind. However, as we saw before, for people that are colorblind, they're not going to see that as standing out. So there's other ways that we could indicate that that's important in addition to color. So for example, we could put that sentence in italics. We could make it bold. We could underline it. I generally would suggest avoiding underlining because in the web ecosystem, underlining typically means it's a link. So you could do it, but I wouldn't necessarily, that wouldn't be my preferred. But notice that what we have here is, for someone that is not colorblind, they see this sentence as being red, italics, and bold. Gee, there must be something important about this sentence, or there must be something different about this sentence so it stands out. That's one thing that we use CSS for, right? Is we ought to strive to make things that have the same kind of meaning on your page look the same way. Whereas things that look different, it should mean something. In other words, I wouldn't make a paragraph purple just to be different. You know, you have all your text on a page black, but you have a certain paragraph purple. You know, I would only do that if there was some reason for that. Maybe it's a quote and you want it to stand out or whatever. The idea again here is we're not going to just use color by itself to indicate that this is a special sentence. We're going to use color along with the kind of font we use, bold and italics and so on. So a person that can see color, they get 3 visual cues that this is important. Person that cannot distinguish the red color will get 2 visual cues. They still have a good idea of knowing that this sentence is important. Okay, so assistive technology for blindness would include the screen reader. For color blindness, we're gonna pick high contrast colors. And we're not going to use color alone to highlight something. You know, press the green button to win $1 million plus push the red button to reformat your hard drive. You know, not a good idea for someone that's colorblind. So we're not going to use color alone to highlight something. Motor control issues. On-screen keyboarder. You actually can control, you can set parameters on the mouse to make it move more or move less. Maybe someone that has trouble with motion has a hard time highlighting the particular thing on the page. Well, if your mouse is very sensitive, it becomes even harder for that person to highlight a small area. One thing we're going to do is make large enough links. In other words, don't make our links so tiny that a person has a hard time selecting them, or don't make them so close together that a person has a hard time selecting them. Enable keyboard shortcuts. Let's think of who that would benefit. People with motor control issues. That would also benefit people that have vision issues. Because again, a blind person can't use a mouse. So notice some of these are technologies, and some of these are things that you can do in your web page to make it accessible. Now, I want to make a key point here. A key point is that the idea of universal design says that when we design for people that have certain disabilities, we are also, in most cases, benefiting people that don't have those disabilities. What do I mean by that? Like, well, maybe we put keyboard shortcuts on our page to help people with motor control issues or people that are blind. But you know what? People that aren't blind or don't have motor control issues can take advantage of keyboard shortcuts as well, right? I mean, a lot of people prefer to use keyboard shortcuts than navigating the mouse through that. So that's something that you may do it for accessibility reasons to help people with certain disabilities, but it helps other people as well. All right. Let's look at how we put keyboard shortcuts on a web page. Well, there's some that are built in to Chrome and other web browsers. You can do it via JavaScript, but you can do this other ways as well. It's also JavaScript. Okay, here's an example. The access key attribute. you would access with Alt-Shift-E in Firefox. And again, probably other key commands, probably similar key commands in Chrome. But this would make the G to select this button. Now, there's a couple that we haven't thought of as far as issues. Vision issues, definitely important. Motor control issues, definitely important. There's a few more. Deafness, all right? Or people that are hard of hearing. Now, that certainly doesn't affect people that are, accessing the visual aspects of the web, but it does affect people that would be consuming certain multimedia elements on the page, like videos or audio clips. The design principle that would assist in this case would be multiple presentations. What do I mean by multiple presentations? You could have an audio of an interview along with a transcript of the interview. So I've seen that like on some NPR sites that if you could either read the article or listen to the listen to the segment. And that's useful for people that can hear because they can't hear the audio. If all you had was the audio, they would be missing that content. Now, again, this is a case of something that can benefit people that don't have that disability. All right. People that are in a busy coffee shop where it might be hard to hear. Maybe they forgot their headphones that day. All right. Maybe people can read faster than the interview is going to go. Speaking, right? I can skim pretty quickly when I read. All right. So maybe even though I can hear, I have my headphones, maybe I would prefer to skim the article reading and then maybe see if I want to listen to the interview. All right. So things like multiple presentations benefit, again, not just people with disabilities, but people in other circumstances as well. Certain cognitive disabilities. And I'm not sure exactly where this would be classified, if this would be considered cognitive or not, but dyslexia would be one. All right, people that are dyslexic. A lot of people that don't know, haven't experienced dyslexia or don't know someone that has it, have some misunderstandings of what dyslexia is. A lot of people think it's simply like words going backwards or switched around or letters being visualized backwards. There's actually a similar simulator for that. It's really fascinating. This is a paragraph that you're actually reading. This might be someone with dyslexia, what they would see. Let's make it a little bigger. As you can see, that can be very difficult to read if that's the way that you are reading. Some videos that can show that as well. Now, what can you do for someone that's dyslexic? Well, Make sure you have a very simple font choice. That makes it very easy to identify. Make sure your font size is not too small. All right. Give ample space around letters for people to distinguish them. Don't have things crammed together. Sometimes having images along with the text can help, because seeing the image gives the dyslexic person some context about what is being talked about. And that may help them identify words more easily. Now, again, none of those things that I said are things that are bad for people without dyslexia. In fact, they're all good. Who wants to read a web page where all the text is crammed together? All right. I don't have dyslexia and I'm not blind, but sometimes it's hard for me to read small print on a computer screen, or print that's too close to each other, or text in some goofy font. All right, that's hard to read. All right. So therefore, the things that we'll do for someone that's dyslexic will also benefit people that are not dyslexic as well.
I think going back to what is at the heart of hearing, there's also something called was that closed captioning or something like that? If you hear that.
Thank you.
I still sometimes use that.
Yeah, thank you. I missed that when I was going through my list. In addition to having a transcript, you can have a video being captioned.
Closed captioning, if you want to be super specific with that, but
Yeah.
it's good to. I sometimes still use that.
Right. I as well. I sometimes use that as well, again, because sometimes it's hard for me to hear things. Like
Especially when watching a movie sometimes.
some movies are definitely like that, where the loud sections are really loud and the quiet sections are really quiet. And sometimes I do that as well. In fact, most of the time I do that. I have the captions on, so that will help me catch what is being said. Now, I've alluded to one thing by using myself as an example here. I don't really have any of these disabilities, but I'm an older person. And older people accessing the site could probably use assistance in all these areas, because things just don't work like they used to. All right. My eyesight is not as good as it used to be. My hearing is not as good as it used to be. My motor control to be able to find and point and click on something on the page, it's not horrible, right? But it's not, if you have a really small target for me to click on, I might have difficulty doing that. All right. Now, here's the thing. We talked about assistive technologies in a number of these areas. All right. And that's great. And people develop them, and they can be used and they can be very beneficial. But also very important is the way you're going to design your page. Now, if you look at all these things I talked about as far as designing, high contrast colors, don't use color alone to highlight something. Make the links large. Use keyboard shortcuts, enable keyboard shortcuts. Have multiple presentations of the same thing. Have an audio and a transcript, or a video and captioning. Under cognitive disabilities, including dyslexia, you would do something like have a very simple design. Very clear navigation. Images along with text. This is just basic good web design. All right. So there are some things that we do specifically for people with disabilities, like the alt attribute on an image. That is for a person's screen reader to be able to access and so that they know what that particular image is. But most of these things, again, are just qualities that we would want our page to have, regardless of whether we're talking about disabled people or people that do not have disabilities. There's a number of good examples of bad web design that people turned in. One thing is, again, another thing is people were prone to seizures. Seizures, certain animations can trigger seizures. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you are not going to have animations on your site? No. What that means is that you ought to warn the user of that and give them an alternative. All right, if possible. In some cases, it might not be possible. Maybe the animation has to be that way. But you could try to represent the meaning a different way. And certainly don't use animation just to add some dazzle to the page, right? Because it really doesn't add as much as you think it is. You know, a lot of times, especially in the old days, it was great when you would see new web developers because they would throw every trick at the book in the book at you on their web pages that have stuff animated and text running around the screen and so on. And you don't do things just because you can. You do things when they really add value to the page and either provide meaningful content, or provide a setting to emphasize meaningful content. There's a great site, and again, you might want to look away for a minute if you are prone to seizures, because I do think this has animations. But this is kind of a classic of bad web design. Ling's Cars. All right, we're off the page. That's almost that's almost looks like it was deliberately done to be bad. I don't know if it's a case like you ever see those advertisements of like a used car dealer on TV where the ad has such poor acting and so over the top, and the guy's in a ridiculous, outrageous suit and all that. It almost looks to me like this person put that site together for this place to stand out so people would talk about it. I don't know though. I definitely wouldn't use that. A lot of you turned in really good examples of bad websites. And if they're bad for people without disabilities, they're going to be bad for people with disabilities. And the reverse is true too. A site that's bad for people with disabilities will oftentimes be bad for people that don't have disabilities. So following good web design principles. We can almost summarize the ideas of good universal design. By saying simplicity, and multiple presentations. Simplicity, keep everything simple. Is it possible to make things too simple? Yeah, it might be possible to have too simple of a design, I guess, but that's not the mistake people usually make. Usually people make things needlessly complicated. Multiple presentations allow people to make choices about how they're, how they can, consume content on a particular page. A good example of multiple presentations, besides the ones that we've given, would be to allow people to apply a certain skin to their web page, a certain color scheme. That way, you know, if you had color blindness or other vision problems, you could pick the color combination that worked best for you or the person. And again, for people that don't have vision issues, well, it's nice to have things, colors that you like them, right? Match your wallpaper or something. I don't know. So consider these when you are developing your website. About the only thing special that we've talked about so far is alt attributes. All your images should have alt attributes because those are used by screen readers to tell people that are using screen readers what that image represents. Again, it's not as good as actually seeing the image, but it is at least something for them. The next couple of topics that we're going to talk about, tables and forms, are examples of containing things that we're going to put on our page that are specifically for people with disabilities. People that don't have disabilities, when they view the page, they'll be irrelevant. They don't really help like some of these other things do. But at the very least, they don't hurt. In other words, when we use the scope attribute on a table, that doesn't really help someone that can see the table. That helps someone using a screen reader. But you know what? It doesn't hurt. It doesn't add anything, any real problems for someone that is not using a screen reader. So we have really 3 big units left. This is week 9, so we're finishing up week 9. That means we have 6 weeks left after this week, that is, which is wild. Like I said before, it seems like we've just started this semester. Our 3 big units are HTML forms, and I forget the order we cover them in, but HTML forms, HTML tables, and JavaScript. We only do JavaScript to a very introductory level. All right. I also want to, since we are a little bit ahead of the game, I probably will have a week where there will be, you know, it will be like a catch-up week or work on your project week or something like that. And please follow Canvas, and I will announce those when I know when I'm going to have them. Does anyone have any questions? All right, that's all I had for today. We'll see you in lab, or we will see you next week.